Ladies and gentlemen, coming away to you now message continue boarding for all economy
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the January edition of the Airshow podcast. We have a really great lineup for you this month. In a little while, we're going to be speaking with Anthony Bellantoni, who is a first officer at Jazz, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about being an airline pilot and how he got there. We're also going to be talking to Anu Vincent today, who is an instructor here at the Brampton Flight Center, but she has another role here as well. And we're going to focus a little bit on that and how that can help you as a pilot here at Brampton Flight Center. And of course, we're going to have our regular segment, Meet the Staff Member. And this month, we're going to be chatting with Rita Lombardi and, of course, what her job entails here at BFC. And as well, we're going to bring you some news in Canadian aviation and aviation in general, things going on. I also want to talk about the impact that drones are having on our airport here at the Brampton Flight Center and in aviation in general these days. In this segment of the podcast, we're going to interview Anthony Bellantoni. Anthony is a first officer at Jazz Airlines and a former student here at the Brampton Flight Center. Thank you for joining us today, Anthony. So, Anthony, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well.
So, you were a student here at the Brampton Flight Center
Yes, it was.
for a number of years,
Yes.
a few years, and decided at some point that you wanted to be a pilot and go into aviation. So, how did you get interested in aviation? What brought you into this field of work?
Well, it started when I was younger. I used to go to the airport after school and everything when I was done all my homework. I'm going to go and see all the beautiful airplanes at Pearson Airport just fly over. There used to be a spot there at the old Wendy's. You can actually sit right underneath the flight path at 2-3 and you just see them come right over top of you. Then after that, got an introduction here and I was set for life.
So, you were introduced, how were you introduced to the Brampton Flight Center?
So my sister got me a introductory flight. From then, once she actually got to fly first, she came to do it with her husband, and then we she got me introduced to it as well, and I got the introductory flight.
So you got the bug from the introductory flight.
Yeah.
A lot of people do. We still do those introductory flights here, by the way, everyone. And it's a great way to get a feel for whether it's something you might like as a career or even just for fun as a hobby. A lot of people do. So, Anthony, when you decided you wanted to learn to fly, did you always want to be an airline pilot, or did you just think maybe this is going to be something fun to do?
Oh no, it was right from the get-go that I wanted to be an airline pilot. I knew right away.
So it was love at first flight.
Yep, pretty much.
There you go. Cool. So tell us a little bit about your initial training at Brampton Flight Center. So, like, when did you start? How old were you?
Ooh, I started a while ago. I was 12 years old when I first started. I was flying with quite a bit of instructors at that point. Actually, one of my instructors is now with us at Jazz. And we actually flew together a couple months ago. All right, so started when I was 12 years old. Did the introductory flight here, and then after that, I was just pretty much doing my recreational license at the young age. Uh, it took me a little while to go because you have to meet some age restrictions for the licenses. So by 16, I was actually flying by myself before I could even drive a car. And then after that, I took a little bit of a break just to get schooling done and everything, as I was pretty young, so I wanted to get high school done. And then I got into the college program here around 18. And once I got into the college program, it was pretty much like a year course, very fast, intensive course. And after that, just got a job up at the island there.
So, what airline was that you flew with at first?
I was at it's called Fly GTA. They just pretty much did city tours. They were actually famous for the quickest flight from St. Catharines to Toronto Pearson or Toronto Billy Bishop Airport, which was just 12 minutes, under 12 minutes. And so we used to do that for a scheduled run. I did that for about 9.5 months and then off to Air Canada Express.
Did you ever think about being an instructor, or you decided just to go straight to the airlines?
I did want to be, I was thinking about becoming an instructor, but down the road, once I was kind of doing the instructor rating and everything, this opportunity kind of came up right away. And I thought, maybe it'll be quicker to kind of go and do a 703 operations and fly through that way to get into the airline.
So that was the route that you decided to take that you thought would be best in your particular
Yeah,
situation.
and everyone has their own different. A lot of them could be instructors. A lot of them could be 703s. So it depends on which you kind of fancy more.
I know some pilots make a decision to head up north and do
Yeah,
some flying up there. Is that something you ever considered, or just
I'm kind
not so much?
I'm kind of a little bit of a drama boy where I like to kind of stay where it's nice and warm and not too too cold up there. So I mean, yes, it is. It is good to go up north, kind of get the experience and get first feel of how icing and all that stuff is and the weather up there. I have a bunch of buddies that were up there and they have some good flying experience there, so it really does help out a lot. But I mean, nowadays you can just skip the 703 operations and get right into the airline, depending on the course that the schooling has.
So Buffalo Airways was not an option
No,
for Anthony.
absolutely not.
Okay.
It was just good to look at on the TV shows.
Yeah, ice pilots. We actually had a young lady who was in our program here who actually went up to work for the Buffalo Airways and enjoyed it for the few years she was up there, but then
Yeah,
I think she came back. So, Anthony, one of the key components of getting a job at any airline is the interview. So, I'd
yeah.
like to talk a little bit about how that process worked for you, coming from the last position you were in to actually interviewing for Jazz.
Yeah, interview. Well, coming from the 703, I guess we can start from there. 703, you kind of sit down with like the owner and stuff like that, and they just ask you your basic kind of questions. Um, and then once you go into like the airline world, it gets a little bit more questiony and stuff like that. And they just basically want to know, make sure that you understand some of the stuff. So you do sit down with a little bit more people, so it kind of looks a little bit more intense. But like a lot of them now is more online ever since after this COVID that we had. A lot of it is online now, so you don't get really that office experience anymore going in. But other than that, like you sit around with a couple people, they ask you a bunch of questions, and it's no more than like a half an hour to an hour long. And
Do you do you find that they may focus a little bit on the psychological side?
some companies do. Some companies focus a lot on the IFR procedures. Just want to make sure that you understand it a lot, and quite a bit of companies they just want to know you, right? How you are, how you're doing. Some might even have, depending if you have people in the aviation industry, some people, they might even just want to see how you are as a person.
Right, right. So part of that, obviously, at some point, is a sim ride.
Oh yeah, the sim
Talk to us
eval.
a little bit about that and how you found that.
Okay, like it wasn't stressful, it wasn't crazy. They're not there. They're not there to find out if you know the airplane or anything. They don't expect you to know the airplane inside and out. Right? They help you quite a bit through, like some speeds restrictions stuff like that. But they're usually just trying to make sure that you understand the IFR procedures. You know how to do an ILS and stuff like that. They're not there to fail an engine on you or anything like that. Nothing serious. But for the most part, it was pretty straightforward. And they usually give you like a little sheet. I had a sheet that had the SimVal on it, with what's gonna maybe like it was just kind of like a what to plan for that day. So it was nothing
Right.
nothing out of the ordinary.
So do they throw any curveballs at you during the sim ride, or is it just a straight
No, it was
procedural?
straight procedure, nothing
Right.
crazy.
And you simmed on which aircraft?
I did my sim eval on the Beach 99 or the Beach 1900. That was part of Georgian at the days. And then we all merged kind of into jazz, and jazz was just a pretty straight, easy sim valve because we were already on the airplane at the time on the RJ. I kind of transitioned into Georgian onto the RJ. Yeah, so it was once they saw us on one flight, they knew that
Right.
we
So
knew what we
now,
were doing.
do they do the sim rides on at RJ or
It's at Jazz, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's on the
the
Q400
Q400?
that
Okay.
they do it on. They might do it on the 200, but it's they once again, right? They usually try to put you on an airplane that you're more comfortable with, and for people where you start off on a propeller. So a lot of people are pretty straightforward with propellers. They're not going to throw you into a jet right away unless the sim's broken and they don't have it. It might be a one off, but they're going to help you through it because they're not expecting you to know the airplane.
Right,
They just
right.
want to make sure that you understand the IFR
So no
procedures.
need to fear that they're going to drop you on a 777 or a
No,
737.
yeah, it would
Say,
be nice to
fly the
do
airplane. Come on, you
it.
can do it.
Yeah.
If you pass this, you definitely got a
Oh yeah,
job.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. Good. What advice would you give individuals that are headed down the path to the airline industry rather than just a recreational permit or a PPL in terms of training for the airlines? Some people elect to go the route of an instructor, some people will
Yeah.
not go that way and just build hours on their own. What would you recommend?
It honestly depends on how people really like look at it. Training, doing instructor is a good way to do it. You kind of get with the flying club, you can get in there. But a lot of it is, make sure you have some IFR time. Especially now, like we're seeing a lot of guys coming in, and they've had their IFR training, but they're kind of lacking a bit because they haven't seen some of the stuff that they would see on a daily basis. So I mean, it all depends on how you feel. If you want to go the training route, instructing, I mean, it's great because then you kind of have the feeling of training afterwards. If you want to get into the training department, it can help you go through that. But a lot of it is try to get some IFR time before you get into the airlines because that's what they heavily focus on a lot. So
Right.
make sure you kind of go with that. Now, either you can do that by going up north, or you can do what I did. Don't have to go up north. You can find. I'm sure there's some places that are like Kitchener or at the island they have some like little 703 operations that you can get in. But even in instructing, you can do it too because eventually you can start teaching people how to do IFR. So if you can get into that, that'll be great too.
Right. So there's lots of different ways into it for
Yeah,
sure. It's really up to you which route you elect to
exactly.
take
Yeah,
to get there for
yeah,
the airline pilot component of it. If you're just looking for recreational or PPL, also a great adventure for people who want to just fly for fun or
yeah,
perhaps one day even buy their own airplane. We have
exactly.
a lot of people here who own their own aircraft. We have a lot of people actually training here now that bought their own
Oh, there you
aircraft
go.
to save money,
Yeah,
right? So we've had several people do that. And really, it comes down to whatever is best for you in terms of what you're looking for, either as a career or just for fun. Now you've gone through the process, you're hired by Jazz, and there's always that first day on the
oh
job.
yeah, the first day. Yep.
So you get tossed into the cockpit with somebody you probably have no idea who they are, never met them before,
Yeah, it's a
and
little
they sit
different.
down here and okay, so what do we do now?
Well, we'll back up a little bit because first off, like you kind of, your day one, you're at Toronto Pearson. You can only kind of go through as a passenger, so it's a little different. But when you go through as an employee, like you kind of get lost. So you kind of need that. You kind of need your help to make your way through. You got to understand. They don't teach you enough in the class about Pearson, so you kind of got to go through it with the first guy that you start with. And so, you kind of walk through. It was funny because we kind of both got lost. The trading captain was from Vancouver. He comes in once in a while, but it was finally we were at some other gates and I didn't know where to go and he didn't know where to go and it was kind of funny. It took us some time to actually get to the gate and get on the airplane and we just kind of sat down, went through everything. it's pretty straightforward, and we actually ended up getting delayed, and it's like 2 hours later, we finally managed to take off. Some maintenance issue that popped up on day one, and we kind of went and just kind of got to our first destination, came back, and right away they already wanted us to switch an airplane and back, and just kind of felt like a normal day. But as a new person, you kind of fall a little bit behind because everything is just go, 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 go. So it could be interesting for you, but it can also be overwhelming. So it all depends on what you have on that day.
Yeah, I suppose something as simple as finding your way through the
Oh
airport
yeah, yep.
where you've never done it before, and then you've got to go through
Well,
security and
exactly.
all
Well,
the
like I
the
say,
things you
right?
have to
Going
do.
through as a passenger is one thing, but going through as an employee is completely different.
Completely different
Yeah.
experience, no doubt. That's
Yep.
for sure. Well, that's great. I think that obviously you found your way to the gate
Yeah.
many times since then. Right now, Anthony, the demand for pilots is super high.
Yeah.
All the airlines are hiring like crazy. I know we've lost several instructors here, which is a good thing because that is, at the end of the day, the ultimate goal for many of the people coming out of our programs and people who've done the instructor route as well.
Yeah.
Do you really think that trend is going to continue? I've heard from some people maybe another 6 months, a year, and then it's going to, trail off a little bit.
Oh, it will definitely continue. I think for as long as I'm flying, and even after I retire, I think there'll still be a demand for it. And I've got quite a bit of years going before I retire. We have so much. We're trying to find guys that we can't find, and it's a lot. And it's just a big chain, right? Where everyone gets fed into your express carriers and all that, and then eventually they make their way to Air Canada, WestJet, all those companies there. So
So there are
there's
constantly people moving up.
oh yeah, constantly.
So
So
the spaces are opening up at the entryway.
absolutely, and there's a lot of guys that are retiring, especially throughout the years, and there's not enough guys filling in for it.
For those positions
For
as
those
well, right?
positions.
Yeah.
So there is a high demand, and I'm just not gonna say here, but even in the States, like there's a lot more flying than what we do here, and they're just desperate and desperate and desperate. So a lot of guys too are making even the jump to the States as well.
So some pilots that are trained up
Oh,
here
yeah.
are actually going to the U.S.
Yeah, they're
airlines.
doing that too. So there's the shortage here in Canada is high, very, very high. So a lot of companies are actually trying to hire as much as they can,
Right.
because this shortage is never going to go. Shortage has even been when I started flying at 12 years old. There was a shortage,
Yeah.
so it's been around for a very long time, and I
Yeah.
don't
It's
think
a
it's going
cycle,
anywhere.
right?
Yeah, well, exactly, and like I said, a lot of the older guys are going to start to retire soon, and there's not enough guys filling in for them.
And certainly the requirements for an airline pilot over the years have, I won't say diminished, that's not the right word, but it's
Yeah.
become a little bit easier to get in
Absolutely,
as an
yeah.
airline pilot. I remember a friend of mine who flies in the US telling me in his day, he needed a university degree
Yeah.
to
Yep.
even apply as an airline pilot. Certainly
Yep.
that's changed.
Yeah, well, even for me when I started the program, you needed a university degree still, and I kind of when I started it was starting to go down, but wasn't as significant as it was today. Whereas guys are just skipping the up north part, or even the instructor, and going straight
Right.
into the airlines, which it depends on as well as the schooling, right? That has that program, that pathway program.
Exactly, and we do have several programs here and associations with Porter and Jazz. So definitely that's a help to students who come out of the programs to get into those interviews. So Anthony, I'd like to ask you about, what's your favorite thing about your job? And on the flip side of that, is there anything about the job that you don't like or you would change? Or maybe a better way to put it would be for new people who are headed down that route toward an airline, some expectations that they should have getting into it as opposed to expectations they may think that the
Yeah.
job will present to them.
That's a good question. to talk about the good things, I guess. First, one thing I love about it is when it's a nice cloudy day and you kind of just take it off and you fly right into the cloud, and then a couple minutes later, or even depending how high the cloud tops are, and you just pop out of the clouds and there's the nice beautiful sun, or the sun rises in the morning. It never gets old. It's always the best thing that can put a smile on
It's
your
an
face
amazing view, yeah.
every single time it happens. It never gets old. It's always the best. For the flip side, there definitely the delays, even the long days too. The delays can you're ready for your flight. You can get an early morning one. Everything seems to be going smoothly. You get to the airplane, and who knows, maybe you have a maintenance issue, or on the flip side, customs delay or something like that. Something happens, and
Weather also, I assume, can also
yeah,
be a big
there's
thing around
multiple
here.
reasons as for a delay, and you just pick out a hat, and who knows what it could be, and now you're sitting there for 2.5 hours, 3 hours waiting for this delay. So it's a and then it could turn into a long day as well with the delay. So it doesn't help, and something like that can really kind of put your mood into from a good one into a bad one.
No doubt. How many days a month do you have average working?
So we do about 85 hours almost a month. So we usually get about 12 days off, depending. Once again, now if you're up higher in the seniority level, you can probably hold a little more days off. So it really depends, um, to be honest. But that's usually your ballpark, your 12 days off.
Right. So you would get your schedule a month or so in advance?
Yeah, usually you get it at the end of the month before the month starts. We call it bid. So you get like a bid package, and they pretty much you put what you want on there, and hopefully you can hold what you can. And usually, if you start at the bottom, you're not going to be able to hold much. So it's they put you on call, which is like a reserve system. So depending, some people might like it, some people might not. More than likely, people don't like it because you gotta get called out. So your day is kind of just sitting there waiting, and you can't
To
do
see if
much.
you're going to get a flight,
Yeah, and to
right?
see if you're gonna get a flight. So it really depends on the person if they like it or not. Some people like it because if they're close to the airport, works great. If they're not, then that's a different world, right?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of pilots, obviously, who work for a company like Jazz, which is a part of Air Canada,
Yeah.
there's always room to move from one division of the company, I guess would be the way to put it, to another. So going from,
Yeah.
for instance, Jazz flying RJs to going to Air Canada, flying 777s, 767s, that type of thing, right?
True.
So maybe you could tell people a
Yeah.
little bit about that process.
A lot of it is once you kind of get into Jazz, which is their associates there with Air Canada. A lot of it is you have to actually wait. Their big one is you have to wait 2 years. That's kind of what they have set in stone at the moment. 2 years, you have to have the ATPL. They won't take you unless you have that. So the great thing coming back with you guys here, you have the integrated ITPL program.
Exactly, yes.
So that would probably be your best bet. Get that, which would help you in the long run to get into Air Canada quicker. So you have that ATPL. That's their biggest one. So it's just a lot of that at the moment that's kind of going through it. But once again, right, you guys have programs here that help you with that to get through quicker.
Yeah, we actually have the IATPL program open now for anyone who's interested in applying. Applications are open and you can find those online on our website. Okay, so Anthony, we're almost at the end here. I really appreciate you coming in today.
Oh no, thank you for having me.
It's great. Anthony, actually, for those of you who don't know, actually used to work for me at the pilot shop as well as many of the people flying for Air Canada and a couple for WestJet and a few other airlines have done.
Quite a bit of us.
Tell us a little bit about your long-term goals as a pilot with
Yeah.
well, you're with Air Canada right now, or I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I should say Jazz right now. Maybe you're looking to get to Air Canada.
Yeah.
So, what are your long-term goals? What do you think you would want to fly? What's your dream plane?
Oh,
That sort of thing.
yeah. Well, my dream plane, unfortunately, Air Canada doesn't have, and that's the 747. They used to have it, but not anymore.
Yeah, those are pretty much
So
gone.
yeah, they're pretty much gone. But right now, I'm kind of looking at. I want to fly overseas. I just kind of want that overseen.
Right, the international,
Yeah, a lot of that oceanic, as they call it.
transoceanic, yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what's right now on my thing. I'm probably gonna do that probably until I get to a little bit older. Then hopefully, just kind of relax, go in the training department, just train pilots that come in. I think that's something that I really want to do. And the moment I just want to just get the taste of transatlantic, and then I'll go from there if I really want to go in the training department or not. So it all depends. But
So what plane would you like to fly?
right now I'm actually set stone on the Airbus A330 that Air Canada kind of
The
has.
330, yeah.
Yeah, looks like a nice machine.
So you like a joystick rather than a yoke?
I kind of like I'm on a yoke right now, so it's I want something different at the moment. And
Yeah.
so I think if I made the transition back to a Boeing, I'd still have that yoke feeling, and I think it would just it'll still feel back like I'm still flying kind of the same airplane, but mine just more heavier and bigger.
Yeah, true enough.
But like I said, I want change, and I think that would be something to change right now.
Well, I think that's a part of every pilot's persona to get out and do something different, right?
Yeah,
to fly something
exactly.
different.
Yeah.
It's
Fly-
like anything else. If you're doing it all the time,
Well, in aviation, like they say, everything is different every day.
true enough.
So it's like, yeah, the airplane you could be on is the same, but sometimes it's going to give you something different completely every day. So it all depends, right?
Hopefully, nothing bad different.
No,
That's
yeah,
the goal
that's
here.
what we don't want.
No, for sure. So, one last question before you go, Anthony.
Sure.
So, we've had many, many students go through our programs here and are flying with a variety of airlines actually around the world. And one thing I always wonder is do you ever run into anybody that you either was a student here or maybe an instructor that's now flying with you at Jazz?
Well, yeah, we got to fly with my old instructor. Great guy. We used to fly together when I was younger all the time, every single day. And then he moved on. And then a couple years later, walks up and he's in the left seat on the RJ, and
There
we're
he
flying
is.
together. So it was great.
Interesting.
It's a great memory to come back to and starting to fly together again.
Yeah, he probably looked at you and said, "Hey, I know you."
Yeah. So you remember my name, and were like one day the day before, like we're actually flying together. So it was
Yeah,
good.
I guess that probably doesn't happen a lot
It's
because there are so many pilots in the
there's
organization,
a lot,
right?
a lot of people are transitioning over, so it depends. But you do get guys that you're flying with every day, and you get guys that that you may fly once, and then you won't see them for the whole year. So
Exactly,
it
yeah.
depends, right?
True enough. All right, well, Anthony, thank you so much for coming in today. We
Yes,
really
thank you for
appreciate
having
your
me.
time. It's always a pleasure to see you and hear about your
Yes.
adventures
Yeah, for
and
sure.
how far you've progressed in the industry. And we just want to wish you the best of luck with everything. That was Anthony Bellantoni, first officer at Jazz. And speaking of jazzy, you can get some really cool swag at the Humphreys Pilot Shop. We now have in some new hats, CNC3 hats, as well as some winter clothing, the Canadian staple, the toque, with our wonderful logo on it, and you can pick those up at the Pilot Shop. And now for the Brampton Flight Center news. Sunwing Airlines has chosen the Brampton Flight Center to be part of its cadet program. This will enable our students to potentially be interviewed and become pilots with Sunwing. We're going to have a little bit of that announcement just in a moment, and if you're interested in listening to the whole announcement, it will be available on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube site. So now here's a few segments of that announcement.
I'd like to welcome everybody here to this, I'll say, momentous occasion. So we're going to have an on-schedule departure, so that's a good start for the event. My name's Alan Page. I'm the general manager of the Brampton Flight Center, and I'd like to welcome everybody here for this. And I'm very proud to announce the signing of a memorandum of understanding with Sunwing Airlines for a cadet program that's going to allow the direct recruitment of some of our BFC IATPL graduates for direct entry positions to the right seat of a Sunwing 737. I think that this is in recognition of the graduates of the BFC IATPL program we're producing airline-ready pilots, and it's a testament to the quality of our students and the caliber of our students and the quality of our training programs. So I'm very proud to be part of this event and part of the cadet program with Sunwing Airlines. I just want to introduce some of our guests here today. So from Sunwing Airline, we've got Michael Simmons. He's the Director of Line Operations.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Simmons, and it's a real pleasure for us to be here today to commemorate this fantastic kickoff partnership with Brampton Flight Center. I'm the Director of Line Operations, so I kind of take care of things on the labor side of the house. And I have the distinct pleasure of working with Jesslyn T, who works in our Office of Collegiate Engagement. And Jesslyn has been working very hard on this partnership with Brampton to bring this to fruition. And we're delighted that we were able to pull this off. It's an exciting time at Sunwing, but this work is very important to us. So Jesslyn reports to me. She also has flight duties. Rodney Chubbs is our Director of Flight Operations. He is essentially our chief pilot, and so he takes care of the regulatory side of the house, how we fly the airplane, how we train on the airplane, standards, and reporting to Transport Canada.
So fantastic news for the Brampton Flight Center, and obviously some good news for Sunwing. They're going to get some excellent pilots from our training programs. As I said before, if you want to listen to the entire announcement, it will be available on our Facebook page and through our YouTube site. Another piece of exciting news is the Brampton Flight Center's RPAS programs have expanded into more northern territories in Ontario. We are now covering the Timmins, Sudbury, and North Bay areas, and we can offer flight reviews as well as all of our training programs in those areas and a little beyond. If you have any questions, you can certainly contact us at the Brampton Flight Center, and we can advise you on specific programs that are catered to your particular needs. And speaking of drones, we've had some issues over the last few months here at the Flight Center with reports of drones in our area. Some of these reports have actually come from residents in the area. However, not so long ago, the town of Caledon put on a drone light show, and unfortunately, they were not aware of some of the responsibilities of the vendors that they were dealing with at the time in terms of them reporting their activities to us at the airport. The light show took place at night. It was more or less in the flight path of runway 26 and not so far away, definitely within our 3 nautical mile area. And fortunately, we were able to get that straightened out and talk to Transport Canada as well about the situation. But it is something that our pilots should be becoming more aware of, that the potential for drones in the area is there, and they should be looking out for those sort of things. Vendors, as well as operators of any drone, should be informing our airport of their intentions, how long they're going to be flying, and there's other information like registration of their aircraft and their pilot's license for flying a drone that they do have to provide to us, as well in advance a site survey. There have been some unfortunate incidents, fortunately not in our area, with drones actually colliding with aircraft or coming close to collisions with aircraft. So again, our pilots should be aware of that situation, both in the daytime and at night. And certainly, if any operators of drones report their flights to us, we will evaluate them, and there will be information to our pilots about any operation of a drone in our particular area. And please don't forget, if you do see a drone operating near the airport or in a dangerous manner, please report it as soon as possible. I would like to mention our maintenance team here at the Brampton Flight Center. We're really proud of their service record. They're very experienced in aircraft maintenance, very dependable, and aim for a very high level of customer care and satisfaction. Some of the services that we provide here in our maintenance department are engine overhaul and repair services, non-IFR avionics installations, minor and major sheet metal repairs, aircraft modifications, some aircraft rebuilds, and we are Garmin 1000 system trained as well, and a variety of other services. So for more information on that, you can contact Angelo, who is the head of our maintenance department, and he can certainly let you know what services they can provide for you. And now a special welcome to a couple of our newer instructors, Mark Jandy and Tristan Campbell. We want to wish them all the best of success here at the Brampton Flight Center. And now our Meet the Staff Member segment of the podcast. Today we are lucky enough to be joined by Rita Lombardi. Rita has a variety of roles here at the Brampton Flight Center, and today we're going to focus in on a few of those and how they relate to our students and the organization as a whole. So welcome, Rita. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today. We're going to talk to you a little bit today about your roles here, as well as how you even came to be here at the Brampton Flight Center. Everybody has a little bit of a story, how they were hired or how they came to be interested in aviation. So how did that work for you?
Well, I'd like to start off, Richard, by saying thank you very much for allowing me to do this podcast with you. I actually came to BFC actually on a fluke. I posted my CV about 4 years ago on a platform, and wasn't really looking for anything specific. And I got a call from Brampton Flight Center to apply for the flight training administrator role. And I've been here now almost 4 years later, and I like what I do.
So Rita, a lot of people come here. Obviously our training, we have multiple programs that sort of are geared towards the airline industry, and which is obviously very popular right now. There's a high demand for pilots. Do a lot of the self-paced students gravitate more towards recreational, or are they also sort of working towards a future in the airline industry?
Yes, I would say we have a good mix of both. A majority of the self-paced students that do come to our flight center to train are for career purposes. And then we have the smaller percentage who just come and do it for fun, for recreational. We have a lot of students who are interested and who have a passion to take up their families, fly them, let's say, to Niagara Falls, go for a picnic, so forth. But a good majority of the self-paced students that we have been receiving over the past many years are more geared towards putting aviation as their career frontline.
So it's a starting point for them rather than jumping into one of the larger programs like the IATPL or the college programs that we have. So this is kind of a stepping stone way of getting into that and maybe spending a little less money all other than upfront, and still gravitating towards a career, but doing it at a different pace than you would do in one of our accelerated programs.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. We have many of our self-paced students who have zero aviation experience. They do love flying, they love airplanes, but they're not 100% certain that that's the actual path that they want to continue for the rest of their career life. So the self-paced program here allows that flexibility for students to learn and obtain a private pilot license and eventually a commercial pilot license at their own at their own pace. So our programs allow that flexibility to work with their schedule rather than a college or an IATPL professional program where the student has to attain or follow Brampton Flight Center's protocol.
Rita, you also work with our international students, and there's quite a process for application for international students nowadays. And with some potential new legislation coming out, how do you think that's going to affect the intake of international students here at the Flight Center?
Well, actually, with this new legislation, it may impact our international students process coming in. And what I mean by impact us is that the process is going to be slightly different. Whereas in the past, we've had international students directly apply to us here at the Brampton Flight Center via an application, an international application platform. That, my understanding is that that may be going away. I'm not sure how much of it is going to be going away, but with this new legislation that they want to put in for 2024 to cap the amount of international students coming into Canada studying, the process will take much longer for that student to receive an approval or a denial, which will also impact their start training date with us here at Brampton Flight Center. That I can see may have somewhat of an impact. It will definitely impact the amount of international students that we have been receiving, although we do a pretty extensive, thorough check on that student who is applying to ensure that that individual is a good fit for Brampton Flight Center and is a good fit for the aviation industry. So that may change process, and what I mean by change, meaning timing, and who is going to be approved and who is not going to be approved to come to Canada to study.
So there'll be a more thorough vetting process,
Correct.
both from the government side and from our side.
Correct.
To make sure there is that fit there,
Correct.
that it's going to be beneficial to the student coming over, as well as obviously to us in terms of quality students.
Correct. Because what's changed and may impact all of that is their first point of contact would need to be put in an application directly with immigration. Then immigration will notify Brampton Flight Center about a new potential international candidate who's interested in coming to your flight center to study aviation.
So it's going sort of as a backward loop that they're going to go through the government first rather than through us first and us going to the government.
Correct.
So you do have a role to play with international students, Rita. What exactly is it that you do in pertaining to their application process?
Actually, it's very interesting when I start going through the international admissions process. Is I go through their application and the documents that they provide us in thorough detail. It allows me to understand what that individual would like to accomplish. What is it that student drove themselves to put an application to the Brampton Flight Center? So I get a little bit of a kick to understand, what their aspirations were or are. Then what I would do is once everything checks out and everything seems to be appropriately channeled, then it also allows me an opportunity to contact that international student and probe other questions or just kind of like get a feel about that person's drive. Like, where do they see themselves in 2 years, 3 years, while and after training here with Brampton Flight Center?
You also manage the study permit process and supervise all the students as they're going through the program here. Tell us a little bit about how that works and what exactly you do.
Sure. I know that with international students, they take a lot of passion and drive, and they spend, monies, tuition fees to come to Canada to study. And the management part of the study permit process for me is that I want to make sure that that student is valid here in Canada, to remain in Canada, and to have sufficient time in order for he or she to complete the program that they signed up for. So what I like to do is I just like to, just kind of kickstart, send them a reminder, perhaps, 3 months before the expiry date of their study permit, to say, hey, you know what, I'm just reaching out, I know that you're continuing your training here, but please be wary that your study permit expires on a certain date. And if they wish to continue training here, we want to also make sure in the system that they have the proper, accurate, updated documentation for them to remain here in Canada to continue their aviation career studies with Brampton Flight Centre. One of the reasons why I always like to, keep in contact, like have open line of communication with international students in regards to their study permit, is that with the study permit, we also want to make sure that they are meeting all of their milestones. So if they, either they do meet their milestones or they don't, I always really like to give an update. It's like a progress report, an academic review. It's a one-on-one. That I sit down and just kind of give them an overview of how they're doing, how much they've accomplished, and how far they need to go to complete their process before the study permit expires.
So, Rita, you also are critical here in terms of doing marketing for the Brampton Flight Center and promoting us as a flight training facility. So tell us a little bit about your role in doing that.
Sure, marketing. I love marketing. I like to put brand, product, like Brampton Flight Center on a map. I want us to be visible to the market out there. I want people to know that we're here, that we exist. Not too many people know that there is even a Brampton airport, a Brampton Caledon flight airport.
That's so true.
Way up here north of Caledon. And one of the reasons why I love the marketing aspect, because I've done it for many years in my past. I have been a strong advocate in different industries in regards to sales and marketing, like marketing their brand, how to put the name out there on the map and be visible. So what I like doing here, I have had this wonderful opportunity to help market Brampton Flight Center, put out there what we do, putting together campaigns, tracking campaigns. It's a marketing person here, a point of contact here.
Rita, you also, aside from your many other roles you play here and jobs you do so well with the Brampton Flight Center, coordinate and assist in a lot of the events we do have here. And we do have a lot of events at the Brampton Flight Center. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what those events are and how you work with them.
Sure. This is the fun aspect of my job. I love stepping in and stepping up and, coordinating different events. And they are important. I see them in my eyes as being important events because they're not only boost morale here at the Brampton Flight Center, but we open up some of these events to the community that is around us, people who drive by us every single day. And some of the events that we do on an annual basis is one of them is called the Wings Banquet, where, it is the time to cherish and to celebrate all of our graduates all under, one roof, one evening, to celebrate their accomplishments as they graduate through their career or their programs that they're doing here at the Flight Center. Another really big one that we really enjoy doing and having are what we call our school tours. We have many schools around the Peel region, Dufferin region. It extends in the GTA area, where there are a lot of schools that in their grades, they teach aviation. So when they Google us or when they search us, they say it's a Brampton Flight Center. So they call, and many times throughout the year, we have a variety of schools who put in an application that they would like to bring their students here at our flight center and spend a couple hours to see what is the typical day at a flight center. Like, what do the instructors do? It's a great time for the students to ask questions to our, professional flight instructors who are pilots and are teachers here. The other one also that is really is what we call our youth camp. Now we offer that in the summer. It's a great time because the schools are out, and it allows the opportunity for young youth to come also onto our school site here and take a look at our aircraft. Take a look to see what the inside of an aircraft is. And the fun part, or their highlight of they actually get to fly. Yes, which at the end of the day, when they leave or when their parents come to pick them up, their eyes just light up. And they're just in awe, explaining to their parents that they went up in an actual aircraft. So that's also a fun part of one of the many events that we offer here at the Brampton Flight Center, and hopefully we may even be able to put in a little bit more in the future years to come.
One last thing I want to talk to you a little bit about, Rita, is you are the author and editor of our Tailwinds e-newsletter, which comes out every quarter, I believe. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I am so glad that I've had this opportunity, that Brampton Flight Center, took me on as the author and editor of our quarterly Tailwinds e-newsletter. I have worked in my past with journalists, and under their wing, they actually, taught me, and I learned quite a bit from them as to how to put together, different pockets of messaging and, events, or, just like what is going on, what is happening at the Brampton Flight Center. So I have take very, big pride and honor that I am, allowed, the flexibility to reach out to everyone around the Brampton Flight Center, get their input, get their stories, get a lot of pictures, get videos, and I just kind of put all of that together in a story form. And I put it in what we call the Tailwinds e-newsletter, and I send it out on a quarterly basis for everyone to enjoy. So this newsletter has a mix of, has a good variety of different topics. It has aviation-related topics that may affect or impact our students or our members here. It also has some funny stories. It has some quotes. It has a lot of, any upcoming events that are going on, just so everyone is aware as to what is happening at Brampton Flight Center. Because I find that many of our students here are so driven and so focused in studying and learning about their flight training programs, they often forget or are aware of other events that are happening outside of their study. So it's a very inclusive e-newsletter, and we share a lot of different topics.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Rita, on the podcast, and we look forward to working with you in the future. And if anyone has any questions for Rita, you can be reached how?
Yes, there are a variety of ways that anyone can reach out to me. It would be via email at info@bramfly.com. You can give me a call at 905-838-1400. My extension is 228. And I'm here to, help best answer any questions or queries that you may have. Thank you once again, Richard, for allowing me to do this podcast. And we'll just keep moving forward to the future.
Thanks
Thank
again,
you.
Rita. You have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you again real soon. So in this segment, we're going to be talking to Anu Vincent. Anu is an instructor here at the Brampton Flight Center, but she also has another role that she takes care of here, and we're going to be talking to her about that today as well. Thank you for joining us today, Anu, for the second podcast, our January edition. And today we just want to ask you a few questions about your background, how you got interested in aviation. You are an international, or were an international student here. You're
Yes.
now an instructor here, and you have another role that we'll talk about in a minute or two. So what grabbed your interest in aviation, being a woman especially, because not a lot of women gravitate towards this industry, unfortunately?
I grew up close to an international airport, so I watched planes taking off, landing. So that got me pretty interested into it, but never knew how to become a pilot. So when I was in school, I was this teacher who gave me a lot of knowledge about, how to become a pilot. So that kind of motivated me. And of course, I never believed that I could be a pilot, but eventually I studied what my parents told me to study. And then eventually I got into aviation.
So Anna, you were a plane spotter from a young age then, going out to airports. You said you lived nearby one. What airport was that?
It's called Cochin International Airport. In short, they say CIAL. It was when I was in 5th grade, that's when they started making the project. So the first building that I saw was the ATC building, and I really thought the pilots sit in that building. So I used to wave at them thinking that, someone is waving back to me. And then when I was in 7th grade, that's when they decommissioned the whole project. They commissioned the whole project, and we saw planes taking off. So I used to think, oh my God, all the passengers, pilots are looking at us and, waving at us. So it was crazy, but it was very interesting.
Did you ever get to talk to any of the pilots there?
No. It's a
You
very...
couldn't go that far, security and all that thing, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously you made the decision to become a pilot and thought about next steps. You did some basic education, obviously, back in India. And then it came to the point where you had to decide where you wanted to take your training. I'm sure you went out there and did some research on a variety of different locations to do that. But how did you end up here at Brampton Flight Center?
So when I wanted to become a pilot, I was searching back home, any flight school close by. We don't have a lot of flight schools back home. And then one of my friends suggested about Brampton Flight Center. And when I was comparing the cost, Canada was much better. And BFC had, when I was Googling, when I was asking about other people, BFC had a pretty good reputation, and it's one of the oldest and pretty good flight school. So I got in touch with the admin, and the paperwork and the whole immigration was pretty easy. So then eventually decided to come to Canada.
So you found the process itself of applying to the school fairly easy.
The admin was pretty helpful. Immigration, obviously we have to deal with, because since I had a pretty good career, and one of the questions that immigration asked me was, look, why aviation? Why switching from a successful career to,
right. Since you were in IT and then all of a sudden you want to be a pilot.
Yes.
So they were curious, no doubt.
Yeah. So that took a little bit of time. I would say 4-6 months. But other than the whole admin connection with BFC was pretty easy.
So you are an instructor here, as we talked about before, at the Brampton Flight Center. However, you do have another role that you've started when?
I started in October 4th, 2023.
And that role is CASO. So maybe you can explain to our audience exactly, first of all, what CASO stands for, because we all know in aviation, acronyms are everywhere, and half the time people are not even sure what those are. First of all, what does CASO stand for? And exactly what do you do in that role here at the Brampton Flight Center?
So CASO stands for Civil Aviation Safety Officer. CASO is responsible for overall day-to-day management of the safety program. Basically assist each department managers in finding safety hazards and how to, properly deal with them. We are one of the busiest flight training schools in Canada. So we also have a lot of private aircraft flying in and out of CNC3. So it is very important that everyone operates in a safe manner by following the rules and regulations.
So can you give us any specific tips on winter operations? We're into that time of year now. It's snowy out today. It's snowing. The ramps get slippery, that type of thing.
So in the winter, the main concern is weather. When you're planning for a flight, you have to double check the weather. Sometimes we can expect like a sudden snow squall. So you need to have like an alternate route planned. So always make sure you checking the weather, getting the advice from the FFZ or the London FIC. Another concern, sometimes we have like really beautiful day right after a big snowstorm. So make sure you will be operating on a icy or, a lot of snow apron. So make sure that when you're taxiing or when you're walking, just be careful. We have a safety management reporting system. What that does is that people can report if they witness something or if they do something that is unsafe. Once a report is submitted, I do follow up and take corrective action plan. Now, how to access the safety reporting system? You can always go to a website. It's called bfcskymarksms.com. And it has like a small description, the day that it happened, what time it was. And if you know an aircraft registration that was involved in the issue, you can submit that as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today, Anu. That's Anu Vincent. She is an instructor here, as well as the CASO, and I'm sure she'll be looking after the safety of all of us here at the airport. Thank you again, Anu. You have a great day.
Thank you.
And just a little bit of Canadian aviation news. As we mentioned last month, Porter is expanding their services. So once again, there's going to be a requirement for more and more pilots to fill those positions. Porter Airlines is celebrating the start of daily round-trip services between Toronto Pearson, YYZ, and Los Angeles, LAX, today, fostering greater connectivity and cultural exchange between two vibrant cities. Porter is going to be operating the state-of-the-art Embraer E195-E2 aircraft on this route, which offers a 132-seat configuration, all-economy configuration, and the E195-E2 is the most environmentally friendly single-aisle engine aircraft currently in their fleet operations. So everyone, that is a wrap on this month's podcast for January. And we want to thank you for listening in as always. And if you have any questions or you'd like to join us on the podcast with any information or stories you'd like to tell about your career in aviation or your experiences in aviation, feel free to contact me and we can set that up. We'll see you again for our February podcast. And everybody remember, keep your blue side up.
Attention passengers, we've now reached our destination. We hope you enjoyed the flight and have a nice day.